Robert Amsterdam. He's an international lawyer acting on behalf of the former deposed Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra. Mr. Amsterdam, thank you for joining us. Is Mr. Thaksin funding these protests?
Thank you. Listen, the issue of funding has been raised and discussed before. The question really becomes what's behind and what's motivating these protesters, and that has to do with their conditions in northern Thailand and their feeling that they're not part of the Thai political community. That's the issue that's motivating them here. Where they get the money to eat the rice on the ground is hardly the question. People don't take bullets on the basis of who's funding what.
All right, but neither side is innocent in this latest flare-up of violence, really, are they?
You know, I would say to you that in these kinds of confrontations, it isn't a matter of guilt or innocence. One side is a government with a military machine, and let's look at the numbers. 37 dead, 1 soldier, 36 civilians, including journalists and innocent third parties. The behavior of the government in Thailand has to be investigated by some form of international tribunal, because what we're seeing on the ground here has been random attacks on these civilians. And what we're looking for is an international mediator to come in, to step in, and bring a basic humane settlement to the situation.
All right,
That's
but the
all.
Red Shirts had a chance to end this protest in a humane way, and before these killings began, the government put an offer on the table. It said it would hold fresh elections, and the Red Shirts didn't take this offer. Now we're seeing bloodshed and we're seeing violence, but they had the chance to end this.
Not at all, and I think that's a misperception. Had the Red Shirts been convinced of the government offer, they would have taken it. The issue has been this lack of trust,
well, it sounds like some of the Red Shirts
were
some of the Red Shirts obviously were convinced of the government's offer, because we hear that half of them wanted to take it, and the other half, perhaps a more diehard faction, didn't want to take it. They wanted to continue to fight on. They're almost being seen as wanting to provoke some sort of violent reaction from the government and the military.
Well, I think you're presenting an opinion that's not fair. I was in the compound the day before yesterday, meeting with the Red Shirt leaders, and what was clear was there was this absence of trust, and that's why there's the call for the UN or some third party to intervene. And I think we've got to stop pointing fingers, and we've got to get to a quick and speedy resolution of this before more innocent lives are lost.
Does Mr. Thaksin want to see a resolution to all of this?
He's issued a statement to that effect. He's constantly said that. Absolutely.
You take a very interesting view of Mr. Thaksin, because some of your colleagues, other human rights lawyers, would say that under Mr. Thaksin, and during his rule in Thailand, that thousands of people were killed arbitrarily without trial, that media censorship, media freedom was very strict under his rule, and that he is not the victim in all of this, as perhaps you're painting him and the Red Shirts.
Well, I haven't actually mentioned his name other than your questions, and I would disagree with that characterization. I'm focusing on what is a crisis that is going on. If we want to talk about his record, we might as well talk about the fact that he was the first Prime Minister to actually address the needs of the rural citizenship, and that's why these people are risking their lives. So there are two sides to every story, madam.
Of course. Are these protesters being paid by Mr. Thaksin to participate in these protests?
Absolutely not. I've not even heard that as an allegation.
So how much money then is he spending on these protests?
I know you seem to be focused on the money, ma'am. I'm focused on the innocent lives lost. I have absolutely no idea.
Well, because we
can ask the government how much they're spending on these bullets and live ammunition they're firing randomly into the crowd. We can ask them what snipers cost these days. I think you can get into these questions. I don't think that's the issue.
Well, the Centre for Resolution has released financial instructions that it is to freeze 106 corporate and personal accounts, of which Mr. Thaksin's accounts are in this list, to cut support for the Red Shirt protesters. And this is according to the Bank of Thailand. So the Bank of Thailand obviously believes that Mr. Thaksin is behind these protests, and certainly some other big-name Red Shirt backers. And I ask you, is Mr. Thaksin funding these protests?
And my answer to you is I have, number one, no idea. Number two, the question of the Bank of Thailand and the legitimacy of these institutions and their decrees, these all arose out of a military coup in 2006. And I think we have to look at the legitimacy of what goes behind many of these institutions that you're quoting with such certitude.
All right, so we all...
Labeling people as we have there as terrorists is completely arbitrary and obscene.
All right, well, we both agree then that some sort of compromise needs to be reached. The United Nations is calling for both sides to pull back from the brink.
Absolutely.
Neither side at the moment appears as though it's willing to compromise. How do we move beyond this situation now? How do we get some sort of resolution?
Well, I disagree with you. It's very clear in the statement, the 5 points that were released a few days ago, that the red shirts are certainly and unconditionally willing to negotiate. And I know that you've been, as I have, behind those barricades and you've seen the conditions these people are at. I think it's critical, and there's clearly, from my visit behind there, a real interest and desire to resolve the situation.
If there is
and let's just hope that's what transpires on the ground.
Of course, for all the people
and that
of Thailand,
international third parties are brought in.
All right, but if there is this clear desire from the red shirts to end this and to compromise, why are they not dispersing? Why are they continuing to put up these barricades and continuing to fight the military forces?
Well, let's be clear. They've been labeled as terrorists. Many of them have warrants for arrest against them, and they believe that their followers will not be treated humanely. You're in a situation where 37 have just been murdered. I think their behavior is very rational in wanting a third party to guarantee their safety.